Biden and the Donnie T. But the question now is, where's Donald? A lot of folks are noticing that Donald Trump is going quiet, like really quiet, and maybe intentionally so. Take a look on my screen here. You've got the Donald Trump campaign Make America Great Again event page. And on this page, if we have that up, Christian, we've got July 9th. Looks like was functioning earlier. Anyway, you've got a couple rallies only for Joe Biden on his event page right now. You've got Doral, Florida on July 9th and July 13th for Butler, Pennsylvania. And a lot of folks are wondering, wait a minute, he's had a lot more rallies than this. What's going on? Well, I'll tell you what's going on. First of all, last month, we had 16 fundraisers or events in June for Donald Trump and 5 rallies in June. Right now, we're only on pace for 2 rallies in July, and there might be a reason for this. Take a look at this piece. Now, it's the Times, but surprisingly, the Times has kind of been nailing their criticism of Biden lately, and quite frankly, rightfully calling what Trump is doing, which right now is Trump stays quiet, hoping Biden stays in the race. In other words, Trump is basically taking a back seat, letting Biden self-destruct. Let's take a look at some of these quotes here. Mr. Trump, rarely one to shy away from his opinion, has not been fully silent, giving a few interviews, but again, way less of a schedule than what we saw in June, as per the numbers I just gave, which is just based on Trump's website and his historical performance. But quote, but Trump has largely set back and allowed the Democratic Party to dominate the debate over Mr. Biden's political future in a signal of his preferred opponent. In other words, Trump, we already know this, would love to be the one competing against, well, I mean, he's going to be, but Trump would love to compete against Biden because, frankly, right now, Biden is getting absolutely destroyed by almost all of the liberal media that typically supports Biden and chastises Trump. Now, Trump, by doing nothing, is having the media do his job for him. It's pretty incredible. Look at this. After months of relentlessly attacking Mr. Biden as too physically and mentally weak to lead the country, which coming from Trump doesn't, you know, we already know Trump's going to say that, the former president has been content to let the news coverage of the Democrats doubting their party leader take hold, according to 2 advisors. In other words, the more Trump makes noise now, the more you take away from the absolute destruction Biden is receiving from the media. So you don't want to be in the news if you're Trump right now. You actually kind of want to be quiet because you're at peak anti-Bidenism, which is quite frankly very, very convenient for Trump at the moment, which is also very bad for Democrats. I mean, Democrats should be concerned at how much negative press Biden is getting, as opposed to potentially good press a replacement for Biden could be getting. Now, we'll talk Newsom and replacement in just a moment, but take a look at this. His relative lack of public comments also reflects the issue to some extent of his desire for Biden to stay in the race and Trump's confidence that he can easily beat Biden. Keep in mind, I mean, there's some references to polls here. Let's pull off this for a moment here, Christian. I want to just show you some of the latest Real Clear Politics polls. And what's remarkable is they are almost all in favor of Biden. It's just not even close. So I always generally, I go to Real Clear Politics and then polls. Take a look at this on screen here. We haven't gotten a post yet from July 3rd. Maybe the Real Clear Politics writers are off on July 4th. Happy July 4th, by the way. Got a coupon code for those programs on Building Your Wealth, link down below. But look at this right here. You've got Trump leading by 6 points in the New York Times Siena poll. You've got Trump leading by 5 when you throw in Kennedy, 6 in the Wall Street Journal, 2 to 4 in the CBS, 2 in the Yahoo, Economist, YouGov, 2. In other words, I mean, it's all in favor of Trump right now, all of the latest polling, which we would expect because, quite frankly, Biden probably needs to go visit the doctor. So this is something that yesterday the White House press secretary told us, no, Biden has not gone to the doctor after the debate. But Mikey, you heard that might not be true.
Yeah, it turns out Biden went to the doctor after the debate.
What is this, like, gaslighting you get from the White House? Like, at this point, I feel like they should be, like, honest For once, because nobody believes them anymore, and they're just hurting themselves. So, okay, wait. So the press secretary tells us, no, he hasn't gone to the doctor. This was in the same press statement where one of the reporters is like, hey, why doesn't Biden come talk to us directly? And so another reporter goes, he's asleep. Great. What happened? What did we find out?
It was just a cold, man. It was right after the debate. He had a cold. He went and visited the doctor. That is what they're saying. So this was during a White House meeting that was to Democratic governors, and in it, Biden said that he's had a persistent cold, so he had to go to the doctor. No intense tests were done, nothing like that. Just a common cold, nothing to worry about. Most governors after that actually posted on X. There was a lot of support for Biden after that. There were two. We have Michelle Grissom of New Mexico and Janet Mills of Maine. They both expressed concern about Biden's health and Biden's ability to actually lead.
Yeah. I think the problem is the more the Democratic Party leans into this idea that no, he's okay, the more people just look and go, by you not expressing concern, you are losing credibility. Like Nancy Pelosi is like, hey, maybe there is cause for a legitimate concern for Biden's health. That is actually her way of trying to maintain some credibility. Because if she's just like, pulls a Chuck Schumer, is like, I just support Biden. It's like, wait, you support a senile man. It's not his fault he's senile, but you support someone who has a mental app to lead the country against Russia and China and the geopolitical crises we have. What's actually very scary about this is there was a piece about senility in office. And I thought this was really interesting because what they do is they refer to how senile leaders in the past have essentially become dictatorships that are prone to denial and deception. In other words, everyone around, for example, this previous Soviet leader from 1964 to 1982, Brezhnev, quote, even after Brezhnev began drooling on himself in appearances on Soviet television, the clique around him took no action other than to nominate him for more medals. Well, today with social media, it's a lot harder to hide and conceal the truth. But their motives were selfish. Of course, nobody wants to lose their job. If anybody talks out against Biden inside the White House cabinet, you're just get fired when somebody else takes over. But this was scary because listen to this. Their motives were selfish, with no one supervising them, and each minister could do what they liked in their personal fief. So in other words, there was no leader. All of the individual leaders inside the White House can kind of just do whatever they want because you don't have one leader because that person's not capable. And as a result, with Brezhnev in the Soviet Union, strategic thinking evaporated, and then the army blundered in Afghanistan, and the Soviet Union eventually fell apart. Now, how ironic that during Biden's first couple years in office, we have a complete disaster of a troop withdrawal in Afghanistan. The parallel here is scary because it shows you when you have, literally in history, when you have a leaderless country or union or whatever you want to call it, where you have selfish cabinet members trying to cover for the broken, demented leader, you end up having failures like failing in Afghanistan and a failed country or union. And now when you compare that to Biden, we have also a leader who's almost essentially drooling on himself and has also failed in Afghanistan. It just makes you wonder, is then the next logical conclusion a leaderless society, a society that potentially collapses, which is really bad? And I know that might be hyperbolic, and I don't actually think America's on the verge of collapse, but I do think it's wild that you could pull history, and history tells you that, yes, history rhymes a lot. It maybe doesn't repeat itself exactly, but it sounds very, very similar. What was also very sad is the front page of the Economist. We could pull this up here. Look at this. This is theeconomist.com. First of all, The Economist hates Trump. Like, they absolutely hate his guts. I listen to them when I go run on the little audio app that they have or whatever, which is actually really good. Hashtag not sponsored, but I actually think they provide really good perspective. But I have to listen to them with this filter on of how much they hate Trump, because they like, I'll be listening to an article on I don't know, Brazil, and they'll be like, By the way, Trump would just make everything worse. But back to the point, like they have to like inject the salt. I almost think the editors at The Economist have like a salt shaker, and every article that goes through, it's the anti-Trump salt they put on it. But despite that, look at the cover of The Economist. Christian, we could go ahead and throw this up on screen here. American politics. No. What?
It's unplugged again.
Yeah, okay. I don't know what's going on with our cabling here, but we'll go ahead and get this up here. It's killing the flow. Yeah, fix the HDMI cables. I want a refund. All right, here we go. American politics. No way to run a country.
No way to walk a country either.
Yeah, no kidding. No way to watch it what it should be. A walker with the presidential seal on it. This is rough. This is absolutely rough. They have multiple articles attached to this. Democratic bigwigs are starting to call for Joe Biden to step aside. Joe Biden is only drooling himself. Sorry, that says Joe Biden is only fooling himself. Senality in high office. These are some of the historical ones that we were looking at regarding Brezhnev in the Soviet Union. And when you actually go to this article, let's pull back for a second, Christian. Here I have the highlighted version that we're going to go to. By the way, shout out to the Safari Reader. It actually lets you export some of these news articles pretty well. But take a look at this here. So I highlighted through this. The operation, well, first of all, yeah, look at this opening line here. The presidential debate was awful for Biden. Remember, this is The Economist. They hate Trump. The presidential debate was awful for Joe Biden, but the cover-up has been worse. It was agony to watch the befuddled old man struggling to recall words and facts. His inability to land an argument against a weak opponent was dispiriting. They're calling Trump a weak opponent because, again, they hate Trump, which is fine. But Biden couldn't even land an argument against a weak opponent. But the operation by his campaign to deny what tens of millions of Americans saw with their own eyes is more toxic than either Trump or that debate performance because the dishonesty provokes contempt. That's how bad it's getting. That The Economist is now saying you're likely and in danger of losing once safe states in the election by keeping Biden because this lie has now been exposed on national television and you're sticking with it. It's dumb. Listen to this. Mr. Biden can still appear dynamic during short, scripted appearances, but you cannot run a superpower basically using teleprompters. And you cannot put an international crisis on hold because the president is having a bad night or, is napping. This napping thing, mind you, came out from the New York Times. Did you hear that from the New York Times? The New York Times said when Biden was doing his debate prep would never start earlier than 11 a.m.
Right.
And they still gave him time for an afternoon nap before resuming. Anyway, listen to this. Oh, mind you, in the same paragraph, Democrats argue rightly that Mr. Trump is unfit to be president. See, again,
in there. Yeah.
They got to throw the salt in there, the anti-Trump. That's why I'm looking at this, because I don't need to look at pro-Trump sources to hear bagging on Biden. I want to see the pro-Biden sources and what they're saying. And what they're saying is, Biden sucks, and we're being lied to, right? This is why Trump is going dark. It is logically very smart right now for Donald Trump to go as dark as humanly possible. Anyway, so and you cannot put an international crisis on hold because the president is having a bad night. Should someone who cannot finish a sentence about Medicare be trusted with the nuclear codes? Bro, that's scathing. The Economist is scathing Biden about not being capable with the nuclear codes. Mr. Biden is blameless for his failing powers. They're basically saying, look, you can't blame him for being demented or senile. That's true. Anybody who becomes a dementia patient, it's not their fault. But anyway, but not for a second disqualification for which he is blamable, which is his insistence, abetted by his family. Hunter Biden's been showing up at a lot of events. You seen that? He's been he's the new how do you say unofficial chief of staff. You got it, Dad. And he's showing up at events, and they're showing him on camera sitting in the audience like this, sort of like nodding Biden along. And a lot of people were like, this is like Jill and Hunter running the country now. It's like kind of scary.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. Senior, which abetted by his family, senior staff, and Democratic elites, that he is still up to the world's toughest job. In other words, people close to Biden are just sort of like stroking him, suggesting, no, you're fine. Everything's okay. But The Economist goes as far as saying the Democratic Party should look in the mirror. Senior Democrats repeating these desperate talking points or waiting in silence for someone else to speak up first may think they are being loyal. Is it loyal to their country or their careers? Bro, I would have never thought I would be reading this in The Economist, that The Economist is saying, are these people being selfish a-holes, or are they actually trying to fight for the country? Using the threat of Trump as a dictator to offset Biden's evident infirmity is a form of blackmail. In other words, suggesting that Trump is a dictator, while at the same time you have a senile president, and when we saw what happened with Brezhnev in the Soviet Union, is actually a form of blackmail. So, like, maybe Trump would be a dictator, but Biden basically is what The Economist is saying. They call him a stubborn old man. And then, what do we have here? We believe that Kamala Harris or any other candidate would have a good chance of winning against Trump because they would be fit to govern, and they would, with the exception of Harris, deprive Mr. Trump of his strongest arguments against Biden: the responsibility for inflation, immigration, and the witch hunt against Trump. Which, I mean, think about that for a moment. It's kind of true. If you picked even somebody that I substantially dislike, Gavin Newsom, you would, who's campaigning for Biden right now, by the way, we'll talk about that in a moment, because Biden can't campaign. But anyway, even if you picked somebody like Newsom, you couldn't blame Newsom for the national level of inflation, for the national immigration crisis, somewhat, California border, but still, federal issues come into play, and the prosecution against Trump, because he's kind of a national blank slate. Kamala Harris, I think, gets some of that a little bit as well, because nobody actually thinks she's done anything in the presidency anyway, so she probably is also a blank slate. Now, there was something, I got to find it here, about Kamala Harris, about the funding. Yes, yeah, here it is. The scramble for cash. A new Democratic nominee would likely inherit the Biden campaign infrastructure, but they would only get so far without ample cash flow. A new candidate would need to raise hundreds of millions of dollars to mount a serious campaign and introduce themselves to America in an abbreviated campaign. But they argue in the rest of the article that Miss Harris would be able to take over Biden's campaign fundraising. So there's a lot of murmuring that you get a Harris-Newsom ticket Monday.
Oh, boy.
So, yeah, but that would be double California. So maybe do you need like a Harris-Pete, so you balance out California? What do you think?
I love California.
Yeah.
Don't like California politics. That's a little bit too much.
How's
I don't
that
even
possible? You live in the hometown of politics.
Yeah.
You live in the capital.
Sacramento. I love California. I mean, I know a lot of people talk crap about it, but it's so expensive to live there in the politics. But there's a reason it's expensive to live here. It's a premium you pay because a lot of people do want to live here, and there's a lot of good reason to live here. There's a lot of jobs. The weather is absolutely amazing. It's rich historically, like U.S. history, which is relatively short. But I love the people here. Like, I love the beaches. There's so much about California. Actually, it has like every biome, right? The politics sucks. And
we have a super majority of Democrats. You'd think you'd be able to like get crap done when you literally have no resistance. When we had Schwarzenegger as governor, I feel like he wanted to run for president there at one point and challenge this whole like born in America thing, which kind of seems like almost the same degree of racist. I think that's the argument they were going to go for, because it's like you can't help it if you're born black or born in a different country. Mm-hmm. But you can be a black president, but you can't be born in a foreign country and be president. So some people make that sort of parallel. But anyway, that's totally a tangent. But, when he was governor, you still had Republicans. And so you didn't have a supermajority. You have literally a supermajority of Democrats. And you can do anything you want in California. But Newsom won't, because he wants to be president. Why rock the boat in California? You can't have somebody run California who wants to be president because they'll try to just keep the status quo, not cause damage, so they can become president. That's why Newsom gets nothing done in California.
Yeah, it's made it worse. Like we've needed a strong governor, especially since COVID. Everything's gone downhill, and we haven't had that.
Yeah, exactly. So now it seems like after this talk about Trump going dark, at the same time as this, we had that leak from the golf course. Now, yesterday I was a little skeptical about I bet Trump quietly approved that video at the golf course. Today I feel confident that's exactly what happened because they don't want to come across as making official statements right now, other than what's going on Truth Social. But that's basically frankly it's mostly a Trump echo chamber, which is fine. It's cool. You have Threads, which is like your Zuck echo chamber, your Elon echo chamber, which is X, and you got your Trump echo chamber, which is Truth, which is fine. I'll just look at all of them. But what's interesting is this sort of leak here on the golf course totally aligns with what we just started this live stream with, which is Trump is going quiet. He's going dark because everyone who used to be a Biden supporter was bagging on it. Why would you need to make an official statement? For those people who haven't watched it, I think we should watch it.
Let's watch it.
Okay, let's get it up.
Can you turn up the volume just a little bit? Trump's kind of quiet on this.
You gave me so much. How did I do with the debate the other night?
Oh, fantastic.
He kicked that old broken down pile of crap.
Yeah.
It's a bad guy. He just quit, He's quitting the race. Is that right? Yep, I got him out of the race. And that means we have Kamala. I think she's going to be better. She's so bad. She's so pathetic. It's so amazing. It's just so fucking bad. So I just can't imagine that guy dealing with Putin and the president of China, who's a fierce person. He's a fierce man, a very tough guy. And they see him, they can't. But they just announced he's probably quitting.
Good.
Okay?
Yeah, that's amazing.
You just keep knocking him out, right?
I loved, by the way, that he was like, she's going to be a lot better than him. She's awful. That was great.
When I first watched it too, I'm like, well, is he actually complimenting her? No. Better for us. is his POV, right? That's funny. And I'll tell you, the last 48 hours have just been this roller coaster on the predicted chart. I can't show it anymore because the real roller coaster was between 25 and 48 hours ago. But Harris was above, Biden's below. You could still see some of it. Now Harris goes back down, Biden goes back up. In the last hour, Harris picks up again. The betting odds are all over the place, but you're basically stacked up between who's going to be the presidential nominee, Harris or Biden. But frankly, if you give all of these other odds to Harris, it's clear the markets think Biden is going to get replaced. Michelle has already said she doesn't want to run. We've got Newsom, who probably won't because of Harris. Harris, in the Telegraph, reported by the Telegraph, doesn't want to be overstepped by a white man. And so this is playing the sort of, hey, I'm next. I'm a black woman. It's my turn. Anyway, so it's really interesting. At the same time as this volatility is going on here, and Trump is clearly leading in the polls for the presidency, it looks like there was here it is. Look at this. Presidential winner. Look at that gap. Donald Trump, 58 to 59%. Joe Biden, 26. It's pretty bad. And it's sort of reiterated by some of the other polls that we're seeing. But at the same time as this, you mentioned there was a Trump Saves America movie clip.
I gotta show you this, man. So I saw this on Truth Social. Trump had posted about this. It's a new movie that's coming out. It's called Trump's Rescue Mission: Saving America, and it's kind of like a little documentary type situation. But I just thought it was worth sharing. Watch this.
All right, let's take it. Oh.
Distinguished guests, the President of the United States.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
When Joe Biden came into office, he inherited success. All Biden had to do was do nothing, just not screw it up. We went from safe streets to record crime.
Are you for defunding the police?
How are you defining defund the police?
We went from $2 gas to $4 gas.
We are in the longest sustained period of a wrong track number that high in the history of our poll.
We went from stable prices to record inflation.
Over $1.3 billion.
You can't put two sentences together.
After I signed the Act, Katanji drowned Jackson. Putin's autocracy. Yeah.
He can't find the stairs off a stage when he makes a speech.
We have Joe Biden with an open border, a red carpet invitation. If you're a terrorist, come murder Americans here today.
Joe Biden came into office and unsecured the border on purpose.
I want a number. How many people have you let into this country?
You don't know. Does anybody know? None of you know.
We're in the middle of a war in this country. It is a war between those of us who love the United States of America and a fringe minority who hates this country and what we stand for.
Is the United States safer from foreign terror threats today than when Joe Biden took office?
If you took the 10 worst presidents and added them up, they would not have done the damage to this country as Joe Biden has done.
Trump handed him an economy on a silver platter.
Raise your hand if you think President Trump's policies on the economy would be better for your family. All right, so that is everybody.
2, 10, 12, 15. Whoop, stepping on a... It's black. Anyway.
Joe Biden, I don't believe he knows what he's doing. I really don't.
The chaotic and deadly U.S. evacuation from Afghanistan stunned Americans and the world.
My teenage daughter would have planned a better exit than Joe Biden did.
When Putin saw how incompetent we were, he said, wow, I'm now going to go into Ukraine.
This is what Russian President Vladimir Putin unleashed on Ukraine.
What has Joe Biden done? Allowed 2 wars to start on his watch, in the Ukraine and the one in Israel.
It is one of the darkest moments of the Biden presidency to date.
It's almost like they intentionally tried to set the Middle East on fire.
Hamas terrorists went door to door, slaughtering anyone they could find.
We're going to end up in World War III because of this guy. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Who are you going to vote for?
Trump.
And why?
I like you guys.
I'm willing to do whatever I have to do to save our country and to save our Constitution.
He's doing this for one reason and one reason alone, because we are on a rescue mission.
Trump's rescue mission, saving America.
Wow. It's like we drafted a quarterback,
$159 billion,
and then you realize after 2 games he can't play.
Yikes. We'll show a Biden one in a moment here. I'll send it to you. I don't think I have audio on mine, so I'll send you mine. Or just go to at Joe Biden. It's like his second down post, at Joe Biden. So we'll play theirs, but you'll see a big contrast here because the Trump one does, first of all, make this rightful claim that it kind of does help when you have an open border if you're trying to have good jobs numbers. It's worth noting that when job numbers are collected, the immigration status of an individual surveyed isn't counted. So when the official government surveys are conducted, either by the census, which are household surveys, or by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the question is, how many people are working in your household? How many people have a job in your household? How many people work for your company? Not how many legal individuals work. So job numbers can absolutely be propped up by an open border. Now, we'll look at, we'll contrast this video here to the Joe Biden latest proposed sort of movie, so to speak. It's a lot shorter. Yeah, that one right there. But what's remarkable is there are some pretty damning arguments in that Trump video, because you're not only talking about the border, but you're talking about issues that people very much care about. The economy, crime, geopolitics, what's going on in the Middle East. And these are all really weak points for Biden, which a new Democratic nominee wouldn't have as bad. So let's take a play of this one. This one's only about 38 seconds long. Let's see this one, Mikey. What do we got?
The president is now a king above the law. Okay. That's her bottom line in her dissent. Sotomayor.
He says, you're not going to be a dictator, are you? I said, no, other than day one.
Revenge does take time, and sometimes revenge can be justified based on what they've done. I would have every right to go after them.
Now, I don't know about you, Becky. I want to hear about it, but it's what's really interesting to me is you have a Biden campaign that's like, just don't vote for Trump. Vote for anybody but Trump because he's a dictator and he's evil. And then the Trump vision is, well, here's the Middle East on fire, crime getting worse, the economy, not feeling as great as it was, obviously, the border crisis, and a leaderless country. And then you have the Economist basically saying a leaderless country is like having a dictator because basically the people around him do whatever they want without any kind of check and balance because the person in control isn't actually in control. That was the Brezhnev analogy we talked about at the beginning of the video. So now Americans have to look and decide, okay, well, how did I feel during the Trump presidency versus now? And many of them feel a lot worse today than they did then. Now, if this election were held right after Jan 6, there's no doubt that Donald Trump would lose because emotions were extremely anti-Trump after Jan 6. But a lot of that has since sort of faded away, mostly because you've started to see footage from the inside of what was going on at the Capitol that is a completely different portrayal from what we saw from the outside looking in. We don't have to go relitigate J6. But these are two very different messages. One is, look how bad things have gotten. And then the Biden message is, do you want a dictator? Notice neither of them, though, are saying, hey, here's how we're going to make it better. I mean, it's implied, right? You don't want a dictator. You don't want this. But nobody's really talking right now. This doesn't seem like it's an election of what the solutions are going forward. It seems like this is an election of who not to pick. I just saw a comment here on the stream. Somebody's like, I'd rather pick Biden in a wheelchair and an IV drip than Trump. There is a lot of this, like, because I think a lot of people who watch my channel are there are a lot of people from both sides who watch. And it's interesting because I don't know if I agree with that. Like, even if I absolutely hated the opponent, I don't know that I could pick someone on an IV drip, dysfunctional in a wheelchair, because I'm not actually picking a dysfunctional person in a wheelchair. I'm picking all the people that were hired by whom? It wasn't the dysfunctional person in the wheelchair picked it. Probably just the Democratic Party. Here, hire these people. Okay, well, now unelected representatives are putting people in places, and I don't know if they're going to function well. At least with Trump, if he didn't like somebody, he'd fire them. You think Biden fires anyone? I don't even think Biden hires anyone. That's the unknown is scary. That's why I'd rather, like, if you had at least a Newsom versus Trump matchup, at least you could argue that Newsom and Trump would have some control who would be hired and fired. What am I missing there, Mike?
I think you nailed it when you said that it's really about, look how bad the other side is. At this point, it's kind of weird to me when people get really, really passionate, for either side, because, we're picking from the bottom of the barrel here is how I really see it. So, I can't get too passionate during this thing for either one because I'm just trying to pick which one is going to, I guess, harm my country the least or harm the economy the least. And yeah, both of them are just talking about how bad it is. The other guy's a dictator. The other guy hates America. That's all you're really hearing. Last night I went back and I watched the debate, 2012, the Obama versus Mittens. And it was so different. Debates were so different. There was a level of respect. Even when people were disagreeing with each other, there was talk about how they're going to make the country better. Right now it's, and maybe Trump's to blame for this, but it's turned into like a showbiz kind of event. It's completely different. It's really, really sad. So that's why when it comes to someone like Newsom, I very much actively dislike Newsom, but I feel like it would be less of a clown show than having Biden versus Trump personally.
Totally agree. And it's interesting you mentioned Newsom because right now it's not Joe Biden who's campaigning. In fact, we could show this up on screen right here. You do have a Biden on the presidential schedule right here. It says the president and first lady host barbecue with active duty military service members. That'll happen at 5:15. Note that literally nothing has happened as far as we can tell on the presidential schedule until 5:15 in terms of public appearances on July 4th. The first appearance is 5:15 p.m. Then you have President and First Lady at 9 p.m., so Biden will probably be falling asleep at this point. But anyway, hosting a 4th of July celebration for military and veteran family members. Both of these are happening on the South Lawn, so barbecue and then these, Biden to deliver remarks. So we'll get teleprompter Joe. But who's actually now campaigning is the following. California governor to campaign for Biden in West Michigan. So Newsom is out there actually hitting the campaign trail when Biden's at home watching somebody else cook his barbecue for him and reading off a teleprompter. Now, we do have a couple Biden events coming up along with the, friendly ABC interview that'll drop tomorrow. But I don't think we get past early next week keeping Biden. I mean, you quite frankly, what is this here? Van Buren Dems barbecue for Biden-Harris. Not with Biden, with Newsom, because it's a fundraiser or whatever. But he's not even out there campaigning because I don't think he can, Newsom. That's crazy. So I don't know.
We learned about that during the when you were running for governor, is that you can't go against the desires of the Democratic Party. They're deciding, and you're just like it's almost like playing in a team, and when coach says you're playing in this position, that's all you can do. It's like, all right, well, I guess I'm playing this position or I get kicked off the team. Yeah. So when we tried, like, hey, we're pretty in the middle. We're going to run on the Democratic ticket just because there's no way as a Republican you're going to get elected in California.
Well, not only that, but you can't get anything done. I mean, if you have a supermajority of Dems in the Senate and the legislature, a Republican that comes in would just get sandbagged, especially in a recall election where you only have a year. Like, the Democratic Party could literally nothing until you're gone and then just point to, look, you got nothing done. Well, no duh. So, like, if you're going to run in California, you have to be a Democrat. But you could also be like a reasonable Democrat.
And that's what we try to do. And what happened is we got blacklisted. There were reporters that wanted to talk to you that suddenly were like, hey, I can't do this anymore.
My boss won't let me.
You got kicked out of a Newsom event. Like,
because all the reporters kept wanting to talk to me.
Right. But so we learned kind of the hard way that, like, if you want to be part of the Democratic Party, you got to follow the rules that they've assigned to you. You got to play the role they've assigned to you. It's horrible. It's
disgusting. It's not. It's un-American, is what it is.
It is.
Okay, so that's what we got here. I think on Trump and and Biden. Although I think there was a little bit about declassifying and Epstein. I heard.
I want to show you this.
I feel like this is like a Biden camp coming out trying to highlight that. Oh, you don't even know how bad Trump is or whatever. But what is this?
This is from an interview with Fox. I think this was about 1 month ago, and this was with Trump. And I'll just let you listen to it, and then I want to hear your thoughts.
Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Would you?
I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there, because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would, or at least
Do you think that would restore trust? Help restore trust?
Yeah, I don't know about Epstein so much as I do the others.
What an odd thing to say.
I didn't know you were going to be
sorry, the last little bit here, I cut off.
Are you going to be talking about this?
He's like, I didn't know you were going to be talking about this.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, whether it's Trump and being on lists or whatever, which there have been a lot of sort of fake things about that already, or people affiliated with him, it is really interesting. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if this was sort of like a Biden or Dem camp trying to plant the seed of like, you don't even know how bad it is. I feel like a lot of people have already made up their mind of where Trump is in terms of like the compass of like what they're okay with him doing. I think it's been pretty public so far already. But that's interesting. This is all of the political attack backs you get. So anyway, okay, so that's what we got on Biden and Trump. And I'm really curious to see just how the polls keep coming in. Biden tells governors, oh, this is a new one that just came in. Biden tells governors he needs more sleep and less work at night. Oh, I didn't hear that. Biden told a gathering of Democratic governors that he needs to get more sleep and work fewer hours, including curtailing events after 8 p.m. Oh, that's quite interesting, given that I'm pretty
starting
sure
at 9.
They're
Yeah.
starting at 9. Okay. According to 2 people who participated in the meeting and several others, the remarks on Wednesday were a stark acknowledgement of the fatigue of an 81-year-old president. This is the New York Times. Just absolutely destroying Biden here, along with The Economist. Wow. After a physician, the governor of Hawaii, asked Biden questions about the status of his health, Mr. Biden replied that his health was fine. It's just my brain. What?
I don't know if you know this, but you are your brain. Like, the rest of you is just a method of transportation for your brain. Like,
this is so
what
bad.
does that even mean?
This is so bad. No. This is almost as bad as what is going on with Bitcoin right now? Just briefly, we're gonna hit a couple
Bro,
economic
I don't even
things.
want to look at it right now.
Yeah,
let's
like
check.
apparently the allegation is that it's Mt. Gox and the liquidation, but in fairness, you know, you've got the block.co posting that Mt. Gox is expected to liquidate about $9 billion of Bitcoin starting in July. But the problem with that is, it's funny because I've been talking about Bitcoin going to 58,000 since it was about 71,000. People are like, it's un-American for you to short Bitcoin. And I'm like, it's going to go to 58K. That's 58K. The proof is on the web, on YouTube, and it's all there. But anyway, yeah, now it's here. And now the question is, oh my gosh, it's going to keep going or what's going on? But anyway, to talk about this $9 billion of liquidation over on the block.co. But $9 billion, this is Bitcoin is a $1.14 trillion market cap cryptocurrency. How is less than 1% creating this much selling pressure? There should be enough buying pressure to offset this. It's a little odd. What happened with this Mt. Gox?
Yeah, so Mt. Gox, so there was a big hack with Mt. Gox. There's a lot of money. There's 140,000 Bitcoin. That's where the $9 billion is coming out. That's going to be returned. So these coins are not going to be sold on the open market like people are seemingly fearing.
Yeah.
But so Mt. Gox, when the news came out about these funds, because they transferred all these Bitcoins to a single wallet and presumably to start paying back, creditors or people who had Bitcoin with Mt. Gox, the Bitcoin dropped immediately 4% just on that news, which that was my initial. We have an eHack piece on this for May. That was really surprising because there's not that much there's so much more Bitcoin in circulation. At one point, Mt. Gox held the majority of all Bitcoin. Like, we're talking 2/3 of all Bitcoin in circulation at one point were Mt. Gox up until the big hack. And so that's the hack. Obviously, everything went downstream. And then a lot of other stuff is happening right now as far as there was a Japanese company, same thing, where they were hacked. Now they're going to be paying back Bitcoin.
Right.
So I think it's just this fear and this news that's coming up like, oh, all this Bitcoin's going to hit the market. But yeah, when you do the math, we're talking about a drop in the bucket relative to the market cap of Bitcoin right now.
Yeah, and that's what I don't understand is, I even see in the comments, again, first of all, Mt. Gox is $9 billion, which is like 0.7% of the market cap of Bitcoin. And then there are comments about the German government potentially transferring money to exchanges to liquidate.
Right.
Okay, well, we've got the German and U.S. governments have recently sent $737.6 million to Bitcoin exchanges, including Coinbase. But wait a minute, that's like less than 1/10 of the Mt. Gox problem. So like when we scale up the numbers, these numbers are very, very small. These numbers are 1/3 the size of what Elon Musk dumped in 2022 when the stock sold off like crazy, more than halved in value, substantially more. It was down like 60-70% for Tesla stock, in part because of that pressure, that selling pressure from Elon Musk. But anyway, I know Elon, we had just briefly, what's like, I know there's a lot of talk about short sellers getting smoked. There was a quote you had on that. I know they're offering now FSD transfers until the end of Q3. But I do want to ask you, before we hit some of those things, what happens if they just pulled forward a bunch of Tesla sales to Q2 What happens in Q3 and 4 when rates are still high, they're not doing introductory promo offers, and what happens when those sales start declining again relative to Q2?
That's a good point. They might have to start doing those promotional sales again of low interest, because that clearly worked.
Yeah, it did.
And Tesla's margins, obviously, like their margins have been going a little bit down, but they still have, if you compare it to legacy auto, like massive margins on how much they're making per vehicle. So they have that wiggle room.
Yeah.
And I think right now is the time to show that, like, the sentiment right now is like, oh, people don't want EVs. Like, EV sales are going down. But the truth is, really, people don't want non-Tesla EVs, and people don't want cars in general right now. Like, the all cars have slowed down in sales. So I think for Tesla to kind of control the narrative here, they need to pump out as many cars as possible, which is why I thought the 0.99% APR thing was absolutely brilliant. Because otherwise, you're right, everybody who was on the fence about getting a Tesla, we know someone in this office who was on the fence, and then when that promo came up, they bought a Tesla.
Yeah, that's true.
There's nobody left who's on the fence about getting a Tesla, at least in the short term.
That's interesting. The ones on the fence got convinced, in Q2, basically. And you're right. I mean, you can pull this up here, Christian, on screen. We've got, these are motor vehicle sales, and they show you just how slowly we've been recovering to sort of getting back to the higher levels that we had pre-COVID in the 2000s, in the late 90s, early 2000s. What we're really seeing is this post-recessionary, slow kind of comeback of auto vehicle sales. And rates certainly aren't helping. But I don't know that, a 0.25% to 0.5% cut at the end of this year from the Fed is really going to help. But usually what happens is Tesla rallies in 21-day periods. So the fact that Tesla stock is going up probably just contributes to it going up. From a fundamental point of view, there is concern over Q3, Q4. But from a trend point of view, breaking a 2.5-year downtrend for Tesla is fantastic. So really, really good and bullish in the short term.
We got so many comments on Tesla just now. I just want to address some of these. So, like, people are saying Mercedes EV is so much better. It should be. It costs a lot more.
Well, that's fair. And they probably lose money on it, too.
People are talking about, how expensive EVs are. The Model 3 and the Model Y, at least in the United States, costs less than the average new car that's sold in the U.S., which is surprisingly like $44,000 to $50,000. It's actually really expensive to buy a car here. Someone's talking about Nissan being a play because the Nissan Z is selling. Cool car. I don't see them. Like, if they're selling, people are keeping them there in the garages. I don't know. Teslas are killing people. When you get performance, like basically Ferrari performance, and you price it at $30,000, people are going to be reckless with the cars. Like, the safety features of the cars are second to none. I mean, they got perfect safety ratings in the U.S. and Europe.
And I think those receive a lot more attention, too. The negative press gets a lot more attention.
Yes, of course. So anyway, to get off of that, what I've learned, and this is to answer your question about Musk's quote, what I've learned is that you probably shouldn't bet against Elon.
It's hard to bet against him. Yeah.
It's okay to not invest in Tesla or not be on the side of Elon, but it's very dangerous to bet against him. And so I'll show you, let me see if I can pull this up. He had a tweet about once Tesla solves autonomy and Optimus. Just give me a second here.
Yeah, go ahead and pull that up. In the meantime, worth noting that the economy, or sort of stock market, I should say, which is obviously different from the economy, usually goes through volatility right before a presidential election. So I would expect some volatility in September and October, and I think that could potentially align with Tesla announcing their Q3 deliveries at the beginning of October. So usually September, October are rough months right before an election. So they'll probably be buy the dip opportunities for the entire market. This is not Tesla specific, for the entire market in that September, October period, which will be very interesting, especially since I did see that the greed and fear index just actually finally ticked over to fear. I personally think soon, within the next couple months, which would be September. Within the next couple months, we might be at extreme fear again, solely because market momentum and puts and call options, those are the only things that are keeping this thing from extreme fear right now. You're already in extreme fear in breadth, in other words, the number of stocks that are actually going up, and the new 52-week highs are already at extreme fear. And volatility will come up when puts and calls roll over, and when market momentum rolls over. So some near-term risk. Anyway, you had
I have the quote up on my screen. Once Tesla fully solves autonomy and has Optimus in volume production, anyone still holding a short position will be obliterated, even Gates.
Yikes. Oh, wow.
If you remember 2 years ago, 2 years ago, it was made public that those two were kind of beefing, and Elon didn't want to support his charity, and he texted him, and he said something to the effect of like, sorry, I can't take your charitable or your charity seriously, or your statements on climate change seriously when you're actively shorting Tesla, the company that's doing the most to combat climate change.
Yep. True. Well said. Okay, so, well, that does it. So thank you so much for joining us for an update on Trump versus Biden, the Newsom replacement takeover, Trump going dark, and some updates on, a few updates on Bitcoin and Tesla. Let's hit the outro!
Even though I'm a licensed financial advisor, licensed real estate broker, and becoming a stockbroker, this video is not personalized advice for you.
Sounds
it is
set
not
up.
tax, legal, or otherwise personalized advice tailored to you. This video provides generalized perspective, information, and commentary. Any third-party content I show shall not be deemed endorsed by me. This video is not and shall never be deemed reasonably sufficient information for the purposes of evaluating a security or investment decision. Any links or promoted products are either paid affiliations or products or services we may benefit from. I also personally operate an actively managed ETF. I may personally hold or otherwise hold long or short positions in various securities, potentially including those mentioned in this video. However, I have no relationship to any issuer other than HouseHack, nor am I presently acting as a market maker. Make sure if you're considering investing in HouseHack to always read the PPM at househack.com.
And the coupon code expiring today!